Morning, everybody. This is Anthony Meisner, and I just wanted to bring you our live update for Boulder County for the month of March. There's lots going on here. We're looking at February data today. And in Boulder County, I think the one thing that we need to look at and remember the most is we have had this huge reduction in our contracts for October, November, December, and into January in the new year. It seems like buyer confidence has changed quite a bit because I would say with interest rates remaining the way that they have been, a minus 11% under contract number for Boulder County is a really good sign, right? Because everything being created equal, we would have assumed that this was down 30%, just like the last quarter, right? So it does seem like a boost in buyer confidence. People are getting out there and purchasing. That's a great sign. We were up 23% under contracts from January to February, and that's kept inventory at a pretty stable level, right? The other part of this that I think is worth talking about is that inventory has been a huge shortage, right? So we're still in a seller's market, and let's take a look at that specifically. So this is where we really see our inventory by price range and by market, right? So submarkets, look at the city of Boulder is a really good example. Everyone's always asking about it. We want to definitely get you what you need here. The city of Boulder had 190 active units. So month over month, it stayed the same. Year over year, it's only up 100%. And I say only because look at some of these other markets. Look at Louisville, 500% increase in their active units on market. Well, they only had 18 active units. So those percentage changes are huge skews, but that's a small market. Look at Erie, though. Great example. 84 units on the market in Erie. That's almost 300% more than this time last year. Because of that, there's a lot changing in Erie. Erie is a very interesting market right now. Because of that, actually more solds are taking place this year than last year in Erie, even with those increase in sales prices. So we'll get into that later, but I think very important to understand where people are going with the price of money being more expensive. People are definitely driving out more towards Erie, Broomfield, Longmont, right? So you can see in Longmont, same thing, 14% reduction in inventory. Lots of homes went under contract in that market last month. Month supply of inventory is a really good example of this. If we look into Denver Metro, we're only at 0.9 months of inventory. Boulder County, we're at 1.5 months of inventory, but these are extreme sellers markets, right? They're still very strong. Are they as extreme as the 1.5 weeks of inventory we had last year? Absolutely not. That 0.4 number is something hopefully we never see again because it was far too crazy, right? Because it drove those huge bidding wars and all these price increases. Here, our month supply of inventory at 1.5 feels like we got a little bit of breathing room if you're working with buyers. If you're working with sellers, it's totally tolerable and manageable. It just means we actually have to get back to doing things the right way. The one thing that I wanted to point out, month supply of inventory tells us a lot of things here. History tends to repeat itself. We have seasonal markets, right? I think we're going to be in a rising inventory market like we were last year again. And what that means is that we really want to convince our sellers to list sooner, right? And we want to do that because there's less competition. So if we rise from, let's call it 1.5 months of inventory up to 3 or 3.5 or 4 months of inventory over the course of the year, that just means the longer you wait to list a home, the more competition you're going to have on the marketplace. And some markets are really, really fast still, right? Look at Louisville, 0.9 months of inventory. There's not a lot there. But other markets, look at Superior, 2 months of inventory in that market. So you really got to pay attention to your submarkets here because depending on what city you're listing in, it could mean you need different strategies. Or it means maybe you have a little more wiggle room in Louisville and you don't have to list in March. You could wait till April. Now, let's take a look at our days in MLS. This tells us a lot about our buyer demand and the pace of the market, right? So this is the speed at which homes are going under contract. Boulder still has really low inventory because people haven't listed as many homes. If they don't like it, they tend to sit on it, right? But homes are going under contract in average in 33.5 days there, right? The average for the whole county is 46.5 days. That's still really good, right? It may not be 9.5 like the peak of the market last year, but we don't want that, right? A little bit of wiggle room would be great. So what I think you need to articulate to your buyers and sellers here is that the market is going to pick up all the way through the springtime. It does every year. You can look at 21 or 22 or even 20, right? And you can see how the market picked up speed over the course of that spring market, right? So we're going to have more buyer demand. You're going to have the market moving faster. That means there will be some bidding wars, not crazy bidding wars, but definitely, multiple people fighting over the same product. But it also means that, maybe we get into that 2030 range and it's a year like 2020. The big difference with days in MLS, you have to remember, is depending on what happens with interest rates, it's going to drive more buyers into the market or kind of keep it at our current pace. Now, if we have a reduction in interest rates, let's just call it the last half of the year, we could really see a market back like 2020 where it looks more like a plateau and we kind of have more buyers entering the marketplace as interest rates drop. But if interest rates stay stable or rise, you're going to see a horseshoe effect, a lot like what we saw in 2022. So definitely no crystal ball on this one. We definitely can't tell that, but it is definitely something worth paying attention to. All right, so this is my favorite slide to use with buyers and sellers because it's way easier to talk to them big picture when you're like in your price range, what's happening specifically. So let's just pick a price range like $5 to $5.99 because $5 to $5.99 is pretty extreme. It's a lower price point, but that part of the market is moving really, really fast, right? Now we don't have a lot of inventory. We only had 41 homes on the market from $5 to $5.99. $5 to $5.99 had 36 sales, right? So almost all of that inventory turned over last month. That sales number is quite a bit off of where we were, but year to date, that was about as many sales as we had last year. So that's a good sign. Now, if we look at year over year for the active units, we had 150% more inventory. We needed inventory last year, right? If you guys remember, last year we had a huge shortage of inventory in the beginning of the year. Interest rates were super low, and that created that buying frenzy. It created that bidding war frenzy, right? Because there wasn't enough homes on the market for all the buyer demand. Now it looks like we have a little more homes on the market than we have buyers available. So we're going to start to see that inventory stack up a little bit. But the buy fabrication in this market, so the lower end of the market has a lot of tightness, lots of competition, but because of cost of money, that higher end of the market, maybe not the luxury, but maybe that, average plus to before luxury, let's just call that, 800,000 to 2 million in this marketplace is slowing down quite a bit. Look at that. We have 68% less sales in the 1.5 to 2 million range than we had this time last year. So there's a big difference in the market. Cost of money is creating some of those kind of hurdles for people. Now, the other one I really like you guys to work with clients on is the month supply of inventory and days on market by price range. This is another one that's a really good example. $5 to $5.99, ultra fast market, not enough homes on the market, 0.8 months of inventory, right? What does that mean for your buyers? It means that homes are going under contract in 42 days. It's going to speed up month over month. It got a lot faster, right? That reduced by 30%, but we just don't have enough inventory. I think you're going to see an inventory shortage stay kind of in effect in the market here in the lower price ranges all year. You're definitely going to see a rise in inventory in the higher price ranges because as things stack up and as homes are expensive and, cost of money is expensive, you're going to see more and more of them come on the market, right? You're definitely going to see more inventory come on the market in the lower price points, but you're going to see them stay ultra competitive, which tends to happen in most more balanced markets, right? All right, so if you want to look at a sold analysis, this is a good example of kind of what's happening. So over the course of the last 2 months, we had a huge decrease in under contracts in the fourth quarter, right? So we're feeling that in January. We're starting to see that pick back up, but this is lagging data, right? So this is a little bit behind. Like I said, it was a really good sign to see that 11% under contract number, minus 11% versus last year this time. 3% interest rates, 3.5% last year. Now we're at 6.5 or so. So 7 last month, right? So we had a lot less demand, but we didn't have that many less under contracts. Now, if we would have followed that trajectory, we'd be down 30%. The data shows us we're still showing down 30% in solds, but the good sign is that's going to pick up because we have those under contracts taking place. So we're going to see more. We're going to see a good market. Are we going to see as good of a market as we saw at the beginning of last year? No, but we're also not going to see the slowdown like we saw in the fall of 2022. So decent chart if you need to have a conversation, but the big thing to take away from it is we're not in 2020. We're not in 2021. Those markets are a thing of the past. We really need to look at history to really get a better explanation of what's happening. Average sales price, I think this is one that we probably need a little bit of explanation on. We tend to show it sometimes with a lot of history on it because it's a good example of, what happens over a long period of time to create, why people invest in real estate. Month over month, we showed $100,000 increase in sales price. Did that mean houses went up $100,000? No, it means that the composition of sales was different in February. we saw a big bump in, more expensive, bigger homes that finally sold. And we hadn't had a lot of that over the course of the last like 6 months or so. So as we kind of chased prices down for 8 or 9 months, it's good to see that all coming back up and a big boom in the spring market. So it's always very seasonal. This is a good chart to help articulate that. I like the trailing 12-month number at the bottom. So if you're looking at the city of Boulder or city of Louisville, that TTM percentage change, I think that's a good sign of like how much is the tide rising in Boulder, right? We've seen an 11% price increase in the city of Boulder over the last 12 months. That's what that means. Now, places like Louisville or Superior, we only saw a 4% increase in prices, largely due to Marshall fires and a bunch of shifting markets, right? Lafayette really reaped the benefits of that as people left because of the fires and they went to other places. Proximity was a big deal, right? People wanted to keep their kids in school and all that. And Lafayette saw a 12.5% increase in their average sales price during that time, largely due to their proximity to Superior and Louisville. So that's always a good one to have there. This is a good one if you want to look at just kind of how different we are from last year to this year. I would expect that we fall short the first half of the year. We probably have similar sales to July, August, September if interest rates give us any luck. And then we should outperform the fourth quarter, right? We had a really ugly fourth quarter last year. I would assume that you are going to see that change. So with any luck, maybe we're down 10, 15% for the year as a whole, but it's definitely not going to be consistent. So the last one that we always like to talk about, and I like this one for your buyers and sellers too, and you can look detached versus attached, is you can really see here by price point where the bidding wars are taking place or where the concessions are taking place, right? Last month at 3+ million, you really finally saw it behave like a buyer's market. We had a 94% listed sale price. I would assume anything under 95% shows us we're in a buyer's market, which we should be. We had 7.5 months of inventory at the ultra luxury, but look at the rest of the market. Look at that 5 to 599 range, or even that 1 to 1.5 million range, right? We're still at 98% plus listed sale price. We're still having, we're kind of ramping up for that spring season. You can feel that. Are we going to have the bidding wars like last year? No, right? You can really see that we're kind of on a more of a traditional trajectory. Look at 2020, that first quarter pre-pandemic. This is kind of right in line with what we're seeing now, right? 2019 data looks pretty similar as well. So we're getting back to that new normal where, the peak of our seasons, maybe we're getting to 100, 101%, and then we're kind of tapering off in the fall again. So we're ramping up for a spring buying season. You can already feel it and see it, and then you can see just kind of what history does, and hopefully we kind of land on one of those lines. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and get all of our content. I'm Anthony at Land Title. Hope to catch you next time. Thank you.